The subject of today is officially, that's how it was publicized, that we're dealing with the Deluge and the Tower of Babel, which produced the Babel, the mixture of languages. And maybe it's a good title for today.
I tried.
On account of the day of election, or what most people regard as the superpower in the world today. So, the questioner already put forward here the question, what is my opinion concerning the candidates? So I say, I'm not here to express my personal opinion. I'm here to try to interpret the Torah outlook. Because Hashem the Almighty has given all of us the enormous guidance of Torah in all areas of life. So there's quite a good reference to this situation, which is the words in the Talmud, quoting early sources and based also on prophetic traditions, that the whole of the Bible looks forward to the age when mankind will change for the good, and when people will try to be guided by the words of the living God instead of by their lower instincts, in which also both the record of the world almost being completely destroyed, first on account of immorality, idolatry, and above all social destructive instincts, and was only saved through one man and his family, who was Noach. He was pleasant and kind to everyone. As it says in the first verse of the Parsha last week, 3 times Noach. And that on account of Noach, he gained chen, he gained charm and favor in the eyes of heaven and the eyes of earth. He was Noach to himself and his family, he looked after them carefully. And was Noach to all other people, and tried to bring other people to listen to the conscience, the voice of Hashem, and to save them from complete destruction. It was also Noach to Hashem, Noach Matzachin. And then we have the Tower of Babel, which describes also the arrogance of human beings when they reach the level Naseh Lanu Hashem. They want to make a name for themselves and think that they can rule the world, which also has application today to some individuals who think they can take the place of God and rule the world. If not by persuasion, then by force. If not by force, by threats of annihilation of the other side. So this is the concept of the division that God had to bring into the world in order the superpowers, they shouldn't go too far. I think they can rule this planet. Which also explains there's of course a big race. Who's going to be the superpower that will gain control of this planet, maybe via control and possession of the planets that surround the Earth, or the satellites that they bring to control what's going on this Earth. So we're faced with all these situations today. to some extent. But I think the question in a more direct fashion concerning the two candidates is as follows. That it is hinted in the prophets and also explicitly mentioned in ancient oral traditions that in the times of the Ikvasad Mashiach, when the Messiah is to be expected, it can be a time when there seems to be no other alternative to the survival of the human race on this planet unless from the people of Israel will come the saving thorn for mankind. I'm here quoting, it's really a phrase taken from the New Testament, and I'm quoting here a famous book for which he won the Nobel Prize called The Future of Mankind. And he says he thinks the saving thorn for mankind will come from the Jewish people. So what is this tradition? It's as follows. In the time when we can expect the Mashiach, don't think that it'll be an easy time. It might be a very difficult time, unless the people of Israel all repent and fulfill their task to be a true kingdom of priests. But if we're not on that level, then we have to go to all forms of trials and tribulations till we will have the true Messiah, the true Geula, the true redemption for the kingdom of priests, the people of Israel, and the rest of mankind. So it says there, one of the qualities is chutzpah yatzkei. Arrogance will become very strong. And through the power of arrogance, chutzpah, people will reach high levels. And they will get high positions. And they will lead, or perhaps mislead, the rest of mankind. So, it would strike me as a bit of arrogance in an extreme manner when people have got, people haven't paid taxes to the country, people have got a criminal record of some sort, they even put their names forward as candidates. After they should be ashamed of themselves what they did wrong. I mean, that's one comment. But let's go a bit further. It also says in that same oral tradition that in the time of the tracks of the Mashiach there will be terrible cruelty. There will be some governments who will be based on agnosticism, atheism, who will say God has no power anymore, human beings have power, science has power, through the scientific tools we can do anything. You know, we can rule the world. In good ways, we could do it. It could be used for very good things, to remove poverty and to increase better distribution of wealth so that no starving people. On the other hand, there's a risk involved. The higher the scientific knowledge and also technology, the more it can be abused for evil. And that unfortunately, we've already witnessed with the killing of millions of people who were innocent by the use of scientific so-called progress. So technology can be very good if it's a tool, but it can be the destruction of life on this planet if it's abused. And today it's not only as a statement and warnings, we see it in front of our eyes every day when we listen to any news, any mass media. So therefore there's another statement made. It says, Pnei Hador. Now the Pnei Hador means the faces, that means the leaders of the generation. What will they be like? They be like the face of a dog. Why a dog? So some say the dog is chosen. Because a dog owned by his master is very loyal to his master. One of the great qualities of a man and his dog. A person needs help, needs protection. In life, in more threatening circumstances, he'll have a dog to protect himself, and that dog will be loyal to him to the end. And you look after the dog. Well, and when his master of this dog is taking a walk somewhere, so the dog likes to go in front of him. Dog has that tendency. He, as it were, takes on his position as the one who leads his master. And generally speaking, a loyal and good dog has been trained. He will go in front of his master, but through his superior power of scent, he's got a higher level of power of scent than the human being, than many other animals. He can even smell, and with just a little look with his eye, he will be able to know which way his master wants to go. The master only needs to make a certain type of movement, his body language, or a little hint with his eyes, and the dog will run ahead. When he comes to crossroads, it won't be the master who goes first, the dog goes first to cross the road. He looks which way his master wants to go, to the left or to the right. And this is the situation of the leaders of today. How would they reach their position of leadership? They've got to find out. What do they say, vox populi, vox Dei. Today, the voice of the public is like the voice of God. In other words, anyone who wants to reach the highest levels of leadership, let him try to find out, like the dog, which way do the voters want to go? Whom they're going to vote for? What type? What type of policy shall I tell them? Then we find the situation today. A person can be a complete right-wing leader and has been so since the age of his youth. Only believes in right-wing, let's say, in different countries, right-wing activity. And then he becomes prime minister, and then he sees that, he might lose his chair as being the prime minister, and he wants to keep his chair. That's really what's in his mind. I want to remain the leading personality, like the dog. So I look behind and I see that the people will now vote for someone who goes left rather than somebody who goes right. So the dog also goes left. He makes a 180-degree turn from the extreme right, even more so to the extreme left, as we have witnessed in our country, and as happens non-stop. So also when somebody sees a superpower, he feels, my electioneers, they think of the economy, and for the economy we need oil from the Middle East, so we have to support the Muslims against the Jews in certain ways. Or also sometimes because you have certain tendencies, the American Africans will vote this way and the others vote that way, the Jews, you don't know, they vote this way, that way. So he makes his estimate. So he's not leading anymore. He's like the dog. The dog is not really the leader. He looks like the leader. He goes in front. And that's my comment on today. The two conflicting leaders, so-called, of two different parties, so-called, different policies. Well, it's not really a policy of what's objectively good for the people. It's what the people's impression is, and what do the people want. So he has to constantly have people to give him the latest statistics concerning potential voters. Are they going to vote for this side or that side? And that's why it keeps on changing, because people's views do change. They can change day by day. And people themselves don't know which way to go. They've got to weigh up. So therefore, this zigzag situation is really, it's a childish game, to come down to it. And it's so childish, unfortunately, for people who have at their fingertips very serious decisions to make. And sometimes these leaders are the ones who, through the pressing of a button, can cause the killing of millions of people. That's what we have to remember. It's not simple. It's toile eretz al belimo. That's one aspect. There's another aspect, though, which gives consolation. It says in that same passage, we've got to rely on our Father in heaven. We, the people of Israel, when we see such a situation, we have to say like this: what's going on in the world is really a degradation to the divine image of the human race. That's what's going on today, so many sides. There are many human beings who are saintly and who have conscience and try to always solve questions on the basis of their conscience, or on the basis of what they understand to be the moral teachings of the Ten Commandments, and they follow them. And so it also applies to the Jewish people. So, but on the other hand, there are many people who have power, and they gain the power in ways which are against the conscience and against the divine purpose of the human race. And ultimately, we are fortunate that we who accept Hashem's word and accept the Bible and also the oral traditions connected with the Bible as absolute truth, that we have been told about the situation that Kol Adam Kozev, that human beings, if you rely upon them, especially when they have positions of power, according to the famous saying, power corrupts, unfortunately, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, but not quite absolutely. Why? Because in the end Hashem always shows He's the power above man, and He has made also an oath to the people of Israel, reach all mankind, that He's not going to allow the complete destruction of the world. And that has come about because of, to go back to our subject, because of the following. As we've been saying in this series of shiurim, that the most cryptic statement with which the Midrash begins, and Rashi brings it, first comment, which is so difficult on the surface. When you think about it more deeply, it is the truth, which is written in the books of the prophets, even more so than it is in the Chumash, and it is written in the development of human history until today, in front of our eyes. It's written in what's happening in the world. In other words, Hashem, He allows mankind to go to the most terrible extremes. So what do we read in the Parsha? To go back to I think this is the significant aspect which applies to each one of us, which is Hashem has created et Adam Yashar. He's made human beings with the ability to be upright and balanced and straight in their way of moral thinking. And that's why He's given human beings a conscience, to be Yashar. Then they can preserve the divine image. And then they can make this globe into a paradise. If we go away from it, this world becomes a Gehinnom. The continuity of paradise is illustrated in Jerusalem. We have the mountain of holiness, which has at its center point, which used to exist, from which Hashem continued speaking after the revelation of Sinai, which the cherubs, which covered the Holy Ark, which contained the Holy Torah, as well as the tablets of stone, and from which He continued to speak. And that Holy Ark was transformed from the desert, where the sanctuary was built, to Jerusalem. So therefore, the Beit HaMikdash, today the place of the Beit HaMikdash, which shades the potential of the future Beit HaMikdash, is a place from His holiness, and Yashar will go out, the concept of Yashar, to do things which are right in the eyes of Hashem. Not Ish Kol Yashar Be'einav Yaseh, not the way there's the distorted set of values of the human being when he just goes after his eyes. Ish Kol Yashar Be'einav, mentioned frequently in the Tanakh, and that's chaos. But instead, Lasot et Yashar B'nei Hashem. Hashem wants human beings to be Yashar. And it's very interesting, this phrase is used in this first question which Rashi brings up. Why the Torah gives us the story from Bereshit till the actual Torah was given, because Hashem, He gave it first to the other nations, for various reasons, but then He took it away from them and gave it L'asher Yashar Be'einav, only the people who are upright in His eyes. So let's just trace this a bit. Because what happened? Adam and Eve did not do Yashar. So therefore, you can say they were driven out of Gan Eden, or Gan Eden was driven out of this globe. It's the same thing. They're driven out of this globe, and what's going to happen? It says at the end, when they were driven out, two things, either one or the other. Either there'll be, it says, La Tachera V'Mtapechet, the flame of the ever-turning sword of destruction, build battles. Cherev is Charov, is Charavah, Churban. Or there'll be a path made of Derech Eretz, which will lead to the tree of life. Derech Eretz, that means if there'll be improvement of morals in the world, then they'll get a high level of living. The original potential of Gan Eden will come back. That's what it said, that's the alternative. We're still in the period of La Tachera V'Tapechet. It's becoming more serious. Each generation, the threats, the annihilation of man by man through powers of destruction, is becoming worse in every period of human history. And now it's on a very critical level. So we're still in that. But what it said in the Chumash describes Cain killed Hevel. First, murder which came through not listening to the voice of Hashem. And then Cain himself was allowed to become a wanderer in this earth, recognize that on this earth he won't find ultimate salvation. Nevertheless, one of his descendants was called Tuval Cain. And Tuval Cain means what Cain can lead to. So that was the beginning of the use of metals and metal instruments, which were intended to make more use of everything on this earth for human consumption. The intention was a good one. But Lemech, one of the descendants of Cain, and he said, it's not helping, because these instruments which he invented made a whole technological civilization to improve agriculture and the beginning also of industry. And here following the expansion of the Ramban, it goes into deeply. So he made a song. And the song was that all these tools, they have produced the potential of human beings using them for killing. So therefore the power of murder is continuing in the world. Through those same instruments of technological progress, which contain within them the threat, instead of them being used in the plowshares and so on, to be used for better production of food for the growing population of this globe, they're being used primarily for tools of destruction, and unfortunately that statement has affected all mankind. Then the line of Cain disappeared, primarily because of another aspect that happened, of the social revolution. Previously, human beings treated one another like more or less equals. But as people began to become more industrialized, and also even the agriculture, they were able to develop further, their commerce they able further, of their possessions they able further, they divided into a class division. The haves and the have-nots. The ones that became more and more powerful, they pursued power with great energy, and therefore they were termed the sons of those who have power, B'nai Elohim. And what do? They manipulated the Benot Adam. They used it to have more pleasure, and the more pleasure meant they wanted to take all the women they wanted, and they had the power to imprison the poor, to put them in prisons if they needed, those who were poor, and to make those who were a bit poor even more poor. They could have more power. When Hashem saw that, he said, now comes the end of the world. My experiment has been unsuccessful. There's no possibility in such a society to go and produce Yashar. It's crooked. It's a crooked a crooked human being. What's happened at Tselem Elokim? And he only found Noach, one person with his family. And then that Noach, he was able to survive, and he became the new father of mankind. Previously it was Shet. These were not only, I've skipped the generation, not only, these already descendants of Shet. When the descendants of Cain were finished, but became the descendants of Shet, they developed this an immoral society, both sexually as well socially, an anti-social society. That's what happened. And then it became it swamped the world. It swamped the world so strong that it was, you could say, the physical mabul of the waters. It was just there. And mabul comes from naval, to go and eliminate the way in which naval means when mankind's beautiful character, naval is also novlot, when the trees begin to decay. It's a decay of the human spirit. The Tselem Elokim is disappearing, except what remained with Noah. So this is really what's going to, the introduction. I'll just do one short paragraph of Dessler, who referred to the Churban, which he describes, which to some extent is very similar. The spiritual and moral level of mankind had descended to the Holocaust, and I would say that all human beings saw in the corruption of the generation of the Holocaust an annihilation of the divine image of the human being, which the Nazis used as their main target to destroy, as is also shown in Amalek, that the essence of Amalek was to destroy the human conscience, and also comes out in some expressions from the cultural descendant of Amalek, Hitler. Also said we have to destroy the Jewish people, but they've invented the conscience. Power of man, Superman, or Deutschland über alles, Germany, the super race, they have to conquer the world. Über alles, everything, that was his aim. How could they conquer the world? Annihilate the conscience. Annihilate the nation that represents the conscience. And every Jew represents the conscience, which is correct, they do. But it is, and if you go into it deeply, it's true that, as Chazal say, the source of the enormous hatred comes from jealousy. Just like Cain's killing of his brother came from jealousy, kina. So this is extended until the present day. And Esau did not want to accept the Torah at Sinai, not because it says they've got to observe Shabbos. No, that wouldn't have bothered him. But it says, Lo tetzah, you shouldn't murder. And the essence of Esau, his jealousy was so strong that he wants to kill every Jew, which is a mania, which is an aberration of the human mind. But this aberration has got hold of a big section of mankind, and we're worried today, especially, also again, what's happening in Germany. It's not really tied to the Germans, but what's happening is almost unbelievable in Europe. And this is, so I'll just tell you what was said here. At the most, I would say, the most terrible point of the annihilation of millions was in 1944. Until then it was also terrible. They killed a few millions. But then their rage became insane, almost. The insanity of, not just of Hitler, but all those who followed the Führer, who became their leader. It was an insane destruction of anything human, and which has today been swallowed up in an even worse fashion by some of the extreme elements in Islam. And there's something in this, because it's like Hitler. He even regarded himself fulfilling a mission for God. In other words, he was really like the one fulfilling this mission from the divine fate. And similarly, of course, in Islam, they go and identify it with the true spiritual God, which is enormous blasphemy. And they say, this God wants us to be cruel. He wants us to treat even little children, to learn how to be cruel to others, how to kill them, annihilate, and kill themselves. So I just wanted to do with you, any of you can follow a bit of Hebrew. Then want to follow in Hebrew? I want to paraphrase this. He says, we've got to understand that when materialism and the science of materialistic level becomes very strong, it is the destruction of the human being. In their pride, human beings think that the more mankind progresses in the material development of life here on earth, and they increase their sciences, produce more and more discoveries and inventions to improve our level of living, as it were, and to have more easy communication enjoyments. That's the way to build Olam Metukan, a world which is more complete and more perfect. Then there's a grave error in their hands. All the improvements of technology, in the end, unfortunately, they're just destructive. The whole of civilization, to regard it, technical civilization, as progressing, increases khurban, destruction. They don't seem to recognize that evil moral qualities can destroy everything. If there would be human beings who are notnim, who have a nature on education to give everything, then this world would indeed become a much better place. And whatever means you have available, tools to develop it, could be used to help others, to help civilization, help human beings. And what is the source of destructivity? It is notlim, that people want to take. They grab and take for themselves, for their pride, for their instincts of pleasure of oneself and power for oneself. So that starts struggle with others and regarding other human beings as being not just competitors, but to be enemies of something which we would like to have and they haven't. And therefore they will use their inventions to destroy. So this is really one of the subjects which Dessler, who had great insight, both philosophical and psychological, into human nature, as well as a mastery of the width and depth, not only of the written Tanakh, but of the oral traditions in their variety. And he, throughout his, today, many volumes of works have been produced, of Michtav Meliyahu, and one of his regular subjects that he keeps on adding further understanding to is what he called the Kuntras HaChesed, this division of motivation of human beings into wanting to take and wanting to give. It says the essence of life is to only take in accordance with the necessity to be able to give. Because you have to look after your own needs. Let's say that the Torah says, if someone comes to kill you, then you have to disarm him, if you can do it. If you can't disarm him and stop him that way, you've got to wound him. And even if he's got his sword at your neck, you even have to destroy him, because Hashem loves to give life and save lives. But if someone's out to murder, then you have to stop him. You have to stop him even if he wants to murder you. Why? Because Hashem wants life. Because he wants people to live in order to give. Like also a doctor. The doctor has to take a salary for his work, because if he doesn't, he won't have time to heal other people. He's got to protect himself from any form of infection, more than anything else, because he's needed to remove infections. And the person who's rich shouldn't just waste it, he should use it to help those who are poor. And he shouldn't just scramble it away and say, well, I don't need this money, I'll go and squander it on things of no significance. No, you should use it to help physical and spiritual poverty, to see that it's removed from this earth. And similarly in all areas of life. And a person himself shouldn't say, well, I'll give all the money away. He's got a responsibility to keep his family alive. So he's got to balance it. Otherwise you've got to take, but the taking should be in order to give. And today what do people do? Yes, they give. But what for? So they can take. A person wants to become the president of America, so what's he do? He becomes very, very rich. And what does he do? He gives out his wealth to charity, to millions of people, so they will vote for him. So really he's giving. He's only giving because he wants to take. He's only giving so he can get power, get into power. Not so different. We know that the whole democratic system today is destroyed because of this. Democracy, as it is applied in many nations, is the origin of an oligarchy of rich people ruling the poor, no longer democratic. The rich people use their money to go and make a huge publicity campaign, which the other side can't make. Or they even give out money. They give out free things. And similarly also, there's a person who's got in mind to become a dictator, to establish a complete dictatorship. How does he do it? He goes and puts forward a big campaign, which he puts a lot of money, and gives money to people and other things to people. They should vote for him and democratic government, get a majority, and once he's got his majority, he can all work, he's got his bandits to join him in his government, and they establish a dictatorship, as happened to Hitler. Hitler was voted to become the head of the state through democracy. And that's the danger that faces mankind today. Some will say the same applies to Putin. I'm not going to that question. But still, this is, and where's democracy come from? It comes from the Chumash. But what's saying the Chumash? It's all based on the Bible. But it's the distortion of the Bible. The Bible says, Acheram lahatot. You've got to make decisions, you have to follow the majority. But the majority of who? It says in the same verse, don't follow the majority for anything which is evil. In other words, if evil is used in any way, you're disqualified from taking a vote. That's as it is in Jewish courts and so on. It says this in connection with with justice. Justice, and the king has to follow justice as well. Justice in Jewish law has to be established through individuals who establish the highest moral qualities as they're defined in the Chumash. Men of truth, men of righteousness, and so on. And then, what happens if they do things in an unrighteous way? They're disqualified, they can't be judged anymore. So in the same verse where it established democracy of the Torah, it established also the conditions of democracy, which apply in the Torah state. We don't have it yet. But let's hope we'll have it soon.
Amen.
You didn't get to ask a question.
Questions you have to ask at the beginning tomorrow.
I asked a question before you came.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
Come on time.
Sorry,
We have questions
I
before.
can't get here any earlier.
Yeah, okay. I'm trying.
Okay.
Some days I try and stop the shit early. I'll try and do that tomorrow.
Okay. Okay.